Howdy y'all, I am Ice Cold, and I promise this is the last time you're gonna hear me talk about this topic, but given what today is, I feel like I should, you know, encourage y'all to go out and vote at least just one more time. The comments are definitely gonna have to be disabled on this because I know people are mental with it, but I wanted to put out the official Ice Cold 2024 election prediction. Just because I'm a huge election nerd, y'all know this by now, and this is something that I've been real interested in. Just wanted to go over it for the one time on the day that the election is being held, and just to sort of, I guess, maybe depending on whether you like or dislike the result, maybe it'll get y'all to go vote. I do think that it is absolutely worth it to go vote, because the more people that vote, the better, and you got the general idea. So I'm not going to spend too much time on a lot of these, but I'll briefly explain why one candidate has the advantage in some states and why the other has the advantage in other states, and all of that. And most of the video is going to be spent talking about the states that are going to be a lot closer. Y'all probably know some of them by now. Some of y'all, I mean, I've said them before like a billion times. So, all right, yeah, excessive nerding out ahead. So let us go over and just categorize the safe states. These are going to be the ones that go to one party or another by like 15% or more. So that means it's like in New York, Kamala Harris is going to win, I don't know, 60% of the vote to Donald Trump's 40%, that type of thing. And that's just how it's going to go. That's what the vibes look like. Similarly, in a state like Idaho, Donald Trump is going to get probably like, I don't know, 70% of the vote to Harris's 30. So this is what we're looking at. So just going to fill in all of the last ones. So let's get Nebraska at large. So these are all the safe states. Some are missing, but I've got my reasons for that. So next up is going to be, and I should mention, the safe states are going to be 15% or more in favor of one candidate. Like Harris is not winning Missouri. It's definitely going to go pretty hard for Trump. And then Trump is not winning Illinois. It's going pretty hard for Harris. We know this. So 181 electoral votes for Harris, 106 for Trump and Vance, and you need 270 to win. So that's what's up with that. Going over some of the quote-unquote likely states. This is a margin of victory between 5% and 15%. So that's states like Colorado and New Mexico. Colorado will probably go for Harris by about 12, New Mexico by about 8 to 10, and then we'll see Minnesota, which is Harris's running mate Tim Walz' home state. That's probably going to go to the two of them by probably 7, 8, 9 points. New Hampshire, probably about 7, 8, 9 points the same. Maine, probably 9 to 10. And then, yeah, Nebraska's second. That is the Omaha region. This will be going to Harris and Walz by about 8 points. Just polling data out of there has suggested that, so that's what we're doing. And then Trump also has his share of likely states. I should also mention Virginia. I don't know how I forgot this. This is going to Harris by about 8 to 10 points, same as New Mexico. So, yeah. And then Trump also has the safe states, or the likely states as well. He's got Nebraska's first. This is like right next to 15 points. I'm going to say this is about 14 and a half points for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. This has got Lincoln, Nebraska here, and then some rural spots up here. So Kansas is going to be much of the same, probably 13, 14 points. South Carolina also falls into that category. Alaska, this is actually shifted left a little bit, but it's not enough to really bring it down out of the likely category. Trump is still going to win there by about 8%. And then what else we got? Maine's second. Maine's first is like, what's even here? Is it like Augusta, the capital, and then I forgot what else is there. There's a major city down here somewhere. I just can't remember. And then the more rural second district is going to go for Trump by a likely margin. Also in here is Skibbity, Ohio. That's going to go to Trump by about 8%. I imagine it went for Trump by 8% twice already, and I don't really see that narrowing down anymore. Maybe it will, but yeah, I mean, that's just how I feel about it. So, yeah, Harris and Walz have quite the advantage in terms of the likely states, but Trump and Vance have their Trump and Vance, they're going to make up the difference with the lean states, which are states that'll be won by 1 to 5%. So they'll be closer, but Trump and Vance are definitely going to pick up a lot of electoral votes here. My home state of Texas is going to go to Trump and Vance by just under 5 is my prediction. It's been trending left for quite some time, and I don't think it'll be going to the Democrats this election, nor do I think it'll go to the Democrats in the next election, but 2032, I genuinely think it'll be up for grabs. That's how I feel about it. Next up, Florida. I was originally going to put this in the likely column for Trump and Vance, but after the comments made at that Madison Square Garden rally with the comedian saying Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage out in the ocean, I think this has shrunk from like a 6-point margin for Trump and Vance down to maybe a 4-point margin. So this is still going to trend right. Trump and Vance are going to pick it up and get those 30 electoral votes, as well as Texas's 40, for a total of 70 between these two states. So they are back in the game just off of that. And yeah, Florida definitely going to see some of that. It's going to go to Trump by about 4%. It'll be slightly to the left of Texas. That's why I see it happening. Next up is the state of Iowa. Usually I would put this as a likely state, maybe like 8 to 10 points for Trump and Vance, but, and I'm gonna sound so much like a nerd, but there's a recent poll out of Iowa by like one of the best pollsters in the entire nation. And she is very, very good within her home state of Iowa, showing Harris up 3. I personally don't think Harris is going to win the state of Iowa, but just seeing that poll and knowing how much weight the pollster's opinion carries, I do think that this is going to bring Iowa down into the lean category. I think it might be maybe just slightly to the left of Florida, as crazy as that sounds. But yeah, Trump and Vance are still going to pick up Iowa and its 6 electoral votes. That's how I feel about it. So now we come down to the big 7. These are the 7 that these are all the ones that I'm gonna give a classification, and I'm going to give a candidate the edge in all 7 of them, but they could reasonably go for the other candidate, and 5 out of these 7 I think are going to be razor thin margins. So let us go over the 2 states that I think are going to give one candidate the best margin, and that is going to be Wisconsin and Michigan. I think one thing to note is that there's been a lot of okay, so if you're going off of like polls and vibes, a lot of polls recently have been done by polling firms sponsored by Republican-led organizations, and there's been about like 40 of those, maybe 30 independent polls, and then really just a handful of Democratic-leaning pollsters. I think it's been like 1 to 5 for that. So the independent pollsters have Harris narrowly ahead in Wisconsin and Michigan. I think Michigan, I'm going to say, is Harris +3, Wisconsin maybe plus 1.5 to 2. So these are still going to be close. Trump absolutely can win them, but I think he has a worse chance of these two compared to other states. So Wisconsin and Michigan, I think, are in Harris's column, just based on vibes. I mean, these are traditionally blue states and have voted for the Democrats in every election since 1992, with the exception of 2016, when Donald Trump himself won these 2, as well as Pennsylvania, but we'll get to that. So, speaking of Trump scoring some wins, let's go over to the state of Georgia. This is going to be the first of our 5 tilt states. That means won by less than 1%. I think that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are going to take the advantage here in Georgia, and I think it's gonna. I think that they've got it. I think that they've got it. It's not going to be by much, but I have seen like there's been a big leftward trend in Georgia, but I think the shift for this election compared to 2020 is going to be maybe half a point towards the right, and half a point towards the right will move it from about, a quarter of a point for Democrats to a quarter of a point for Republicans. So I think Georgia, it is going to go red by a very narrow margin, but I do think that Trump and Vance have the advantage here. So next up, I want to go over to Nevada, and heading out west, Harris's home state is California. Maybe that has some sway with Nevada. I'm not too familiar with it. This is probably the least talked about state out of all of the battlegrounds, all the 7 main battlegrounds. So Nevada and its 6 electoral votes, I think, is barely going to go to Harris. There's been a lot of support for Donald Trump and the Republican Party as of late there, but it's just not going to be enough to flip it this time around. I think in 2028 it is in play. I genuinely do think that Nevada is it's rapidly narrowing up. It was a blue state for quite some time. Obama won it, and then he won it twice. Hillary Clinton won Nevada in 2016, and I mean, Hillary Clinton was Hillary Clinton. She was not a good candidate at all. I mean, she lost to Donald Trump, like, let's be real. And this was the only battleground state that she won that year, and she won it by about 2.5 points, and Biden also won it by about 2.5 points, which is kind of an underperformance considering most of the country shifted left in 2020 compared to 2016, but Biden only won Nevada by about the same margin. So it ended up voting to the right of the national average as opposed to slightly to the left in 2016. So this is within the margin of error. I think that Nevada, like I said, is going to be razor thin. It's going to be super close, but I think Harris is going to pull ahead and take the win there. So, places like Las Vegas have been sort of drying up in terms of support for Harris and the Democrats. They just recently elected a Republican governor in 2022. So it's trending right, but I don't think it's going to happen today. I think it could happen in 2028, and I think their governor Lombardo, who is a Republican, will probably win in 2026 as well. He'll win re-election there, but for now, I think this might be Nevada's last go around as a blue state in a lot of capacities there. So it's almost red, but not quite there just yet. So let's go ahead and, okay, don't worry about that. But let's go ahead and move over to the state of North Carolina. And this is an interesting one. This was a late riser for me all the way up until maybe like last week. I had this going red in the same way that Georgia is. But I've been thinking, and I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with who Mark Robinson is. And okay, so there's a governor race going on in North Carolina, and it's Josh Stein, the incumbent attorney general, going against Mark Robinson, the incumbent lieutenant governor. And this is a close race for some time, but then eventually we saw there's a lot of scandals surrounding Mark Robinson, and he has, like, there were some old forum posts of his that got leaked recently where he said, like, he was a black Nazi. I think he was like a foot fetishist or something. There was some crazy stuff coming out of his closet, I suppose. But with Robinson, like, okay, the reason why I'm even putting this blue at all, and the reason why I had it red up until like last week, was because despite it all, Trump was still narrowly leading, but it's like Robinson was down, but it wasn't down that much. And recently, though, within this last week, I have seen polls that have given like this is what we're probably going to expect, like a safe victory by about 15 to 20 points for Josh Stein in the governor race. And personally, I kind of just don't see it going red if Josh Stein is winning by that much on the gubernatorial race. I just don't think there's going to be that much ticket splitting. I could go over the Senate, and I could talk about Montana and how I think that's going to go red for the exact same reason North Carolina is going blue. But yeah, I mean, it's just like there's just not going to be enough split ticket voting for North Carolina to go red. I just think if it wasn't Mark Robinson and if he wasn't losing by 15 to 20 points, I think we could have reasonably said this and had it be correct. But because it is Robinson and because of how unpopular he is and by how much he is going to lose, this it's going to narrowly go over into the Harris column, and that is going to give Harrison Walz the victory at 273 electoral votes. Again, not set in stone. We already have 2 tilt states out on the board. If Trump were to win Nevada, then it's still in play. So you see what I mean there. But I mean, genuinely, it's like North Carolina, man. I mean, I don't see it going red just based off of the data from the gubernatorial race, but it's just not going to go to Harris by that much. And I mean, it'll be a major upset over there because North Carolina voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020. It was pretty close in both elections, but I mean, this time around they have somebody who's going to severely affect up ballot. Like the presidential race in North Carolina is not going to go to Trump just because of Mark Robinson. So that's how it's looking from my lens. So there is that. And let's go ahead and talk about the state of Arizona. Typically, this is regarded as Donald Trump's best battleground state, usually with a lot of polls putting him up, and the independent polls that I mentioned earlier when it came to Wisconsin and Michigan, the independents, they do have Trump up in Arizona by a slight margin. But let me tell you something about both Arizona and neighboring Nevada. There is an abortion referendum on the ballot, and abortion is a touchy subject. I know, I'm aware of that, but the way that I see things with Arizona is that people are going to see, it's going to have a similar effect to Robinson being on the ballot in North Carolina. It's going to be, people are going to, they're going to see, enshrine abortion in the state constitution for Arizona. And then they're going to think should I be voting for Trump if I want to protect abortion in Arizona? Maybe not. And I think that's going to happen enough, and just based on it there's also the Madison Square Garden rally to go back to and look at, because the comments made towards not just Puerto Ricans but Latinos of, I guess, all of all nationalities, it's that's a group that Trump has been making gains among, but I think it's going to reverse course, just for this week. Genuinely, I think it is going. I think Harris, between the abortion referendum and a key demographic that has been swinging hard in favor of Trump, I think Arizona is going to narrowly go blue and be the closest state of the election cycle. This is something that could very easily happen, but just based on what I've seen, it's the polling data shows this, but when you think about vibes, this is how I feel about it. I feel like key demographics are swinging away from Trump, and the abortion referendum being on the ballot, women voters especially are, they are very energized. And in all of these states, the early voting data has shown, that's another thing that I'm basing this off of. It's Wisconsin and Michigan, these aren't tilts because women in Wisconsin and Michigan have been voting just overwhelmingly compared to men, and this growing gender gap related to things like abortion rights and just women's rights in general. It's that has sort of created this divide, and I think that's going to translate over to Arizona as well, just not to the magnitude that it will up here. So Arizona and Nevada, the abortion referendums on their respective ballots are going to narrowly keep them both in the Harris column. Again, this could very well happen and have it come down to Pennsylvania, but yeah, the way I'm seeing it, this is what we're looking at. So I've been talking for about 20 minutes. I promise it's not going to go on that much longer, because we have one more state to characterize, and that is the state of Pennsylvania. And polling data has been showing this one is in a dead heat, and the independent polls that I do take in high regard, things like, Siena and the New York Times, even though the New York Times does like to lean rightward sometimes, but just the independent polls that have been coming out of Pennsylvania and just the general vibes, I think, are going to result in this map. And I think that when we're talking about the tilt states, I think Nevada is going to be half a point. I think Arizona is going to be like 0.1, Georgia 0.25, North Carolina 0.25. But Pennsylvania, you got something to keep in mind. These three states vote together a lot. They voted together in every election since '92, including in 2016 when Trump won all three of them. But I just think this is going to be what we see. This is the vibe that I'm getting. We could see Trump win in Pennsylvania, but I just don't think that he's got it. It's like I've seen a lot of Republican pollsters sort of flood like the averages and all that, and it's created this red mirage. But I do genuinely think that Harris has the slightest of edges in Pennsylvania, just based on vibes and just that general idea that, Pennsylvania is a traditionally blue state. It's been very close as of late. It only went to Biden by 1.2%, but I do think it's going to be the closest out of these three up here in the Rust Belt. So Harris is going to narrowly grab Pennsylvania, but again, like I keep saying, this could be a map that we see and Trump could win. But from where I'm sitting, and with all of my nerding out, I think this is going to be the final map. I could be very wrong. We could see something like this happen. We could see something like, this happen. But I personally don't think it's going to be that shocking. I think that there's people who say this race is hard to predict, and there are people who say this race is easy to predict. I think that there's parts of it that are hard, but just in terms of vibes and where independent polling firms have sort of placed the main 7 states, I do think Harris has the slightest of edges. And again, I could be very wrong. We could see this, but we could also see this. We could also see this. We could see, this in some convoluted time frame. But yeah, overall, that's just how I'm feeling. This is how I think the election is going to go. And like I said, I know that I have talked politics on this channel too many times, and I know there's some of y'all that tend to not appreciate it. I get that completely. I'm a Wizard 101 YouTuber. Like, get real, right? But this is something. It's like elections and voting are really important to me, and they're going to continue to be important to me, and they should be important to you. It is like Tim Walz says, even if you don't care about politics cares about you, and that goes to everybody, no matter what ideology you follow or have adopted. Get out and vote. That's all I'm going to say. Get out and vote no matter what state you're in, even if you're in Ruby Red, South Dakota, or if you're in, like, Blueberry Blue, Vermont, right? Just go out there. Your vote will count. But ultimately, we live in a system where your vote will count a little bit more if you are in any of these states that are gray or brown. So, how about that? But yeah, that is going to wrap up. I promise this is the only time I'm talking about this. The last time I'm talking about this. I'll probably make a video ragging on Abigail Doolittle this Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, for now, thank y'all for watching. I've been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.